Hey all, welcome back. So this video is going to be a little more laid back than usual, and it's not a new installment in my custom showcase series, but I still feel this subject will hold some merit for anyone invested in the castle theme. So if you've been in the scene for a while, you might agree that the BrickLink Designer Program has been a godsend for us LEGO castle fans. They have a track record of reviving a few castle sets that showed great promise as LEGO Ideas submissions, only for the LEGO group to mercilessly shut them down. We have the BrickLink program to thank for the Lowenstein Castle and Castle in the Forest, both of which are very sought after today in the secondary market and can easily become a centerpiece to anyone's collection. With that said, BrickLink has recently announced the start of the voting phase, in which us fans are able to vote for as many submissions as we like, and the deadline is fast approaching. So today, I've gone ahead and selected 10 submissions that caught my eye, which I thought embodied the castle theme well, to discuss and hopefully generate some excitement for these sets. Now, there are about 30 minifig scale castle themed submissions, so if this type of video is interesting to you guys, then I'd be happy to make a follow-up. But on the other hand, if this flops, then it'll be a one-time thing, so no harm done. So without further ado, and in no particular order, here's the first submission, Brickwood Castle. You may recognize this prolific designer who brought us the Castle in the Forest, and they're back with another great submission. I believe this set has gone through several iterations since its original submission for LEGO Ideas several months ago, but the essence of what makes it special is still intact. I think the spiral staircase and surrounding cylindrical walls is what makes this set technically and visually different from other castle sets. I feel the designer was able to cram in a lot of features without compromising too much on detail and scale. It contains most necessary amenities you'd imagine would belong in a castle, and it is done tastefully with consideration for how minifigs would logically traverse from one room to another. Moving on, the Forest Citadel, the designer states that this set is a reimagination of a classic castle scene as depicted in the 90s era LEGO magazines, and I think the set truly embodies some of that classic flair. You can start to see this densely packed scene as a series of set pieces that the designer has provided, which would help us in generating some form of narrative involving a conflict between the Forcemen and the Lion Knights. The interactivity of this set, which the designer claims is both suited for display and play, is really unmatched. It is also visually dense, with multiple types of foliage, and both traditional gable-roofed structures, as well as the more Forceman-esque treetop fortifications. Another cool feature I see is that there has been a lot of time invested in creating a nice meandering path that isn't a simple straight line. It uses a complicated mix of wedge pieces to achieve this natural path that runs parallel to the natural formations around it. Next in line is the Royal Toll Bridge, which the designer claims takes some design inspiration from classic drawbridge type sets. Firstly, I think from a display standpoint, this set is very shelf friendly, which I know sounds like a joke, but if you ever displayed sets on like a bookshelf like I used to, you'd appreciate a set that is long but shallow to fit in a space like that. As for the design, I think a drawbridge setting is a great choice. The majority of it is sort of exposed to the air, which lets you see and appreciate the details put into the various facilities without having to crack open the set. In contrast, spaces that are meant to be enclosed are properly enclosed, so overall, I think this set strikes a great balance between displayability and realism. So the Fortress of Lakeside County is a smaller build, but I wanted to showcase this for several reasons. One, I like that the faction featured in this set is one that we've not yet seen since the original Yellow Castle. In fact, there isn't much to go off of from the source material, which I think gave this designer the opportunity to reimagine this faction as something akin to the Forcemen or the Wolfpack, in that they're finding refuge in abandoned or makeshift camps. I think the use of black as a primary color gives this set some character, and I definitely appreciate the detail that the designer was able to include in such a small footprint. Its scale definitely reminds me of the GWP Forest hideout, and maybe it can benefit from a couple hundred extra pieces to enlarge it a little, and simultaneously get the piece count to something closer to the other BrickLink sets from the past. I'd also like to point out that this set is displayable in both the open and closed position, and so giving the user that freedom is definitely a bonus. Keeping up with the small scale builds, here's the Little Tavern, and I think the title describes this set very well, but once again, the details achieved in such a small build is really awesome. Surprisingly, this set boasts almost 1700 pieces, which I think is a result of the sheer amount of tiny pieces needed to achieve this textured finish. I definitely like that every ounce of space is being used for some kind of purpose, whether that be the tavern space below or the secret bedroom in the attic. I guess another way to put it is that this is a very efficient and dense build. Here's an extra submission that I wanted to briefly talk about. This set of medieval siege weaponry is very nicely built and at a good scale. However, seeing as it is made up of only 400 pieces, I have reservations that this may not be the best set to fill up a spot for an official release. However, I know this may not be possible, but in an ideal world, this set would make an amazing side build to a larger set. And once again, this is not a knock on the designer. I really think that modern wave of castle sets lack siege weaponry, so I don't have any doubts that this designer can find success even if they were to sell the instructions for these builds on Rebrickable. Also guys, just an intermission. Hopefully you guys are enjoying my commentary. The main purpose of this video is for me to discuss these castle theme related news that are very few and far between. If you haven't voted yet and are excited at the possibility of seeing one of these sets become official, then you have until March 31st to cast your votes. And don't forget you can cast more than one vote. Alright, back to the video. The Mountain Fortress I think does a lot of things right. It gives us a refreshing change of scenery, one that I don't think has been done in a LEGO castle set just yet. It has a very clean asymmetric look to it, and the resulting irregular footprint gives the designer a great opportunity to take advantage of these uniquely shaped corridors and walls. It opens up like a dollhouse, reminiscent of the Lion Knight's castle, and basically includes the type of program that we've all come to expect from a castle of this scale. And it looks to me that this set displays well in both the open and closed configuration, which I think will satisfy a range of fans who prefer to display their sets in a certain way. Here we have the Medieval Joiner's Workshop, which I think takes some visual cues from the Blacksmith set. I think its color scheme and detailing gives it enough of a difference to the latter, which strikes a sweet spot between originality and consistency with other castle sets in terms of display. It's an interesting choice for a building, but I'm certainly not complaining. If the Medieval Market Village or the Mill Village Raid sets are any indication, I think some of you may agree that non-castle builds within the castle theme are very much in demand. Here's another set that sort of draws ties with the Blacksmith set. Obviously, the program is different, but the level of detail is top-notch. The spacious interiors I think would make great backgrounds for stop motions and simple stills, and it looks to be very accessible. I will point out though, because this seemed to be a topic of contention in the past, but given its similarities to the Blacksmith set, I can begin to imagine some concerns over the relative scale of the set in comparison to some other sets in the line. But then again, it's really not a deal breaker by any means, and especially as a standalone set, this would surely make an awesome display. And now I'm just thinking out loud here, but seeing as the second and third floor of the building are essentially the same program, would it be crazy to remove the middle floor and turn this whole thing into a two-story building? So changing things up a little bit once again, here's a Forestman themed submission titled The Castle Ambush. I think visually speaking, the set would pair very nicely with the castle in the forest or the Force Hideout in particular, given its similarities in detailing and color scheme. The zipline caught my eye, and I think it's a great addition that adds some dynamic motion to what is already an interesting build. It looks to me that the set is primarily made of 2 builds connected by a bridge, and it also looks like there isn't a back wall, which may be an important detail for some of you guys, but I can't deny that the front facades are very nicely designed to the point where I wouldn't even notice the open back. I also do appreciate the designer making the effort to render the set in a similar way to how LEGO takes their lifestyle shots. I would be convinced this was an official build had I seen this without any context. Finally, and certainly not least, this is the Rogue Tower, which I assume everyone can easily identify its inspiration. I think the Wolfpack is a faction that didn't receive as much love from LEGO as it gets from its fans, and I think this reimagining of the classic Wolfpack Tower set is done tastefully with the incorporation of more modern building techniques as well as some creative liberties in the curation aspect of things. I'll touch more on that in a bit. And one thing I admire is that the designer opted to expand the scenery as opposed to expanding the tower itself, which I think most people would have done, including myself. By working on the landing portion, the designer has given us more context to better understand the overall site, all the while remaining faithful to the original design for the tower. I also want to quickly go back to an earlier point. The set is sitting on a pedestal, or a plinth, which is a deliberate choice by the designer to give the set a diorama feel. I think the designer executed this intent perfectly, but I can see how some folks, including myself, would hope to see some alternate forms that removes the framing to give it a look similar to the other typical castle sets. It is a little unfortunate though that no Wolfpack figures are in circulation right now, so the set couldn't include any official Wolfpack figures. However, the designer did mention that they wanted to avoid stickers, and I totally respect that decision. Anyways guys, these were the 10 plus one extra submission that particularly felt strong to me, but there are actually quite a few more sets that deserve the same amount of attention, so I'll leave a link to the submission list below. And if you'd like me to go over the rest of the castle sets, do let me know in the comments. I hope I was able to give you guys a new perspective on some of these submissions, and hopefully we can generate enough support around any of these great builds. And guys, it goes without saying, a new custom showcase will be coming. It does take quite some time to design and film everything, so thanks for hanging in there. I'll see you guys in the next episode.